All right, we ready to do the obit here?
Yeah, here we go.
All right, I'll lead off.
Please.
Okay. Well, cause for celebration, and for a couple of reasons. And what is now our 100th episode of a podcast for creatives. We've been at this since 2017. It's been a project of love and passion and growth, and we've learned a lot about not just podcasting. I mean, we started our very first episode. We've joked about how it sounded like we were doing this on like two tin cans and a string, and the echoes, and I mean, the audio was just terrible. We realized very quickly if you're doing an audio medium, it should probably sound good. So we figured that out. But 100 episodes, we learned a lot. Learned a lot about podcasting. We learned a lot about each other. We learned a lot about the creative industry, and 100 episodes is something to be proud of and to celebrate, and we are. The other side of this is over 6 years of podcasting, you grow as humans. When we started, I didn't have a son. There was a whole lot about my life that looked a lot different in 2017 than it does now. And Michelle, I know a lot of that is the same for you with work opportunities and family and so many different things. And like anything else, you grow and evolve, and you have different interests, and things kind of pull you away. And it's a cause for celebration, but it's also going to be our final episode of a podcast for creatives. All right, we got it out. We said the words.
Yeah, we said we're not going to drag this out. We're not going to make it some dramatic thing. You know, if you've been listening for a long time, we hate when people are like, "I'm leaving Instagram. Goodbye forever." And we're like, let's just say it right at the top. But it's funny, as you were talking, Steve, I was thinking when he's done talking, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say because I mean, I don't know if I've ever met anyone who enjoys endings or goodbyes, but I certainly don't. Whenever I'm watching a TV series, like rewatching one or watching one for the first time, if it's a long series, I will like not watch the last episode on purpose and then just kind of like loop back to the beginning again and kind of, leave that out in the ether. And that's kind of like my way of like not having to end it and just keep it going forever. And I was also thinking about that we did an episode last June called like The Art of Ending Things, but I don't think that I have retained any of what we talked about in that in terms of how to do a proper send off. So this is my clumsy way of saying like this is awkward, just like our first episode, but also ending it awkwardly. But I feel like I need to say at this point because I feel like I'm making this sound really, like a downer. That this is an ending, but it is also a beginning. And I'm not saying that in through rose-colored glasses, like, oh, this is like a new beginning. Like this is also the start of something very new and exciting that I know for sure we would have not been able to do if we had not started a podcast for creatives.
Completely agree. I think my first inkling for myself that you know this endeavor could start winding down probably came about a year ago. And it's no different than just things in your life have changed, and it's not just I had alluded before about not having a family when we started and now having a family. It's not that at all. It's I think professionally where your life sort of has where my life has taken me. I was when we first started, and through the heart of the arc of our show. I think I was more involved professionally from a creative point of view in my job. It was leading, overseeing, digital and social and video and all the things that we have spent so many hours talking about on this show was a big part of my life. And I don't really do a lot of that anymore, just because of responsibilities and where my focus is. And I have sort of fallen out of love a little bit with creative. And it doesn't mean that, when you fall out of love with something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't respect it just as much and respect the work that people do, and you still stand in awe of it and how people approach that type of work. But it's not something that I feel that passion and that connection for anymore. And I think the better part of, the last year, we've done some really amazing episodes this last year, and it's kind of, ironic that, we're walking away from this after 100 episodes, where I would argue the last, 20 of them have probably been some of the finest work that we've done, at least for this series. But, it just wasn't there anymore in my heart. And, you want to feel true to the work that you're doing and feel like you're a part of it, and it's something that you hold dear. And I just found that the further we were kind of going down that road together, the more it just wasn't there. So it was just time for me. It was just time. I don't know if I know we've had conversations and whatever you're willing to share, but
Yeah. Interestingly, when you're talking about where you were when the show first started and where you are now, and how your career and your role within your organization evolved, I feel like this show has made me more creative. And that may sound silly because, like I went to school for design and I've always done creative things. But I think in the period of my life when this show started, I very much identified as an entrepreneur, as an online business owner. And, through life experience and through this show, my evolution made me realize that I don't want to do any of those things. I don't want to run a business. I don't want to run courses or any of it's. I just want to create. It really, if anything, made me more creative. And today I feel like I identify more, I still do design work, but so much of what I do now is writing. And it's, if you would have told me in 2017 that I would lead with I'm a writer over I'm a designer, I would be like, who is that person? That can't be me. But I am. And, Steve talked about how we, kind of learned this audio medium. We learned to podcast. Obviously, like I've been working on my writing, but I think what kind of made this decision to end on episode 100 easy for me was the thought that the two of us have grown. I don't want to say mastered, because no. I think our last episode before this, our Festivus episode, we did actually have kind of one last audio issue because we had to
took a step back.
Yeah, we had to switch systems, but in many ways, I think both of us are ready for a little bit of a new challenge that we can tackle together in the way that we've tackled this show. So saying goodbyes are hard, but they're easy when it's also a hello.
We owe such a debt of gratitude to all of you who have been with us either from day one or have found us along the way. I don't think when we started doing this, we've documented this so many times that this was just a chance for us to have conversations like we were having without microphones, but with microphones, and maybe seeing if there were other people who felt the same way. And, we were able to sort of find that crew over the years. And, whether, you listen regularly or pop us in every so often, or just found a specific topic interesting, or have engaged with us on social, or won a contest, or whatever we've done over the years that has allowed us to connect with all of you. It's just very much appreciated. This has been a lot of fun to be able to talk about something that I have genuinely cared about and wanted to advocate for what's possible through this medium, and then having a chance to have people who also agree and share their opinions and chime in and have, become friends and connections, and have recognized us in public. Yes, that has happened, which is, weird to be recognized for something that you don't really know if anyone is really listening to, but it's just meant a lot. And, from the bottom of my heart, just thank you for listening and being with us for 100 episodes. And it's just meant the world.
I don't want to have to follow that up.
I could have said I speak for Michelle, too.
I was kind of hoping that you would have said that.
I speak for Michelle when I say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, likewise, I was thinking about all the interesting people we got to have conversations with here on the show as guests, people that we met through this community that we've built. It's so weird that we have this like group that has been cultivated, again, like you said, through this medium that a lot of times, it's just us talking, and I forget that people are listening to it. I'm definitely not thinking about that consciously when we're recording and we're having our conversations. So it's really humbling to know that people are listening and watching, for those who have jumped on YouTube when we added that feature. When we evolve, we have to, kind of be willing to let go of things. And I'm grateful for the time that we had to be able to connect with these folks, and hopeful that a lot of them will stay along with us onto the next project. But yeah, just so much love and so much gratitude for anyone whether you've listened to one episode or watched our clips on Instagram, or just if I think we also need to say this. I think our people that knew us before the show have been like our unsung heroes in, supporting us and being excited, always asking. I mean, I can't tell you, it's anytime I'm seeing family and friends, like they're always asking like about the show and about you. And it's been really fun.
Shout out to your mom, our number one.
Shout out, Mom.
That means the world. Yeah. So what? So where do we go from here?
Let's not make it sound so depressing. Let's get to the fun part.
The good news is that we're not really going anywhere. We're just not doing a podcast for creatives anymore. We've been friends for a long time, and this goes back to what now? 2003, fall of 2003. Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Yeah.
Not possible.
No,
because we don't look that old.
Yeah, I haven't even stopped to think about like how many years it's been, but yeah, so that's tough to just, we're not walking away from each other by any stretch of the imagination, and losing the podcast doesn't mean, the friendship is gone or the working relationship is gone. And that's the exciting part about this, right? We talked about at the top of this is really a celebration. And it is, because there is a new endeavor and project that we have zeroed in on, that we've identified as our next step, and we're excited to sort of talk a little bit about that today. There are still details that probably need to be ironed out, but I think if we're framing it fairly, one thing that, much like when we identified kind of things in the creative industry that we found ourselves being connected to each other over those many years ago before we jumped into the podcast. I think one of the aspects of the show over the last 6 years that has kind of come up regularly is, this concept of nostalgia. And I think we have had some of our more rewarding conversations and discussions about that topic. And, Michelle and I grew up in the 80s and 90s and identify as kids of the late 80s and 90s. And there's so much about that time frame that is relevant today, right? Everything is being sort of rebooted and redone and coming back, and you're seeing some shows that you haven't seen for 20 years get a restart. You're also seeing ads and things like that that harken back to that time frame, and then there's just the genuine memories that we've had growing up in that era, and some of them we feel like are worth a second look, and maybe not necessarily just a courtesy look, or not just a oh, wasn't that cool when we all went through, but really kind of diving deeply into these very niche elements of what it was like growing up in the 80s and 90s, and something that we can peel back some of the layers of what that actually was, why it came about, why was it a cultural thing, why did it mean so much to us, why does it continue to mean so much to us as a generation. So this is, as much as it is talking about things from our childhood, it won't be a show that focuses in on, gee, remember when, but it might be more of an investigative show into why things were, how they were, and the cultural impact that they've had and continue to have today.
Oh, I'm so excited. As Steve said, this is going to be different than a podcast or creatives, not just because we're not focusing specifically on creativity, but our vision right now, again, we're still very much in development, but our vision is to challenge each other from a creative production standpoint. I think that the format of this will be different. The cadence in which these shows are released will be different. And I mean, I think I'm most excited about the subject matter because this is something that is just, important to both of us. But I'm also really excited to take this step in a little bit of a different direction and push ourselves, through the audio medium, through the video medium, but above both of that, which I know is still a hallmark to both of us professionally, from a storytelling medium.
100%. I think it's just a challenge. It's the next step for us. I think ultimately one of the main reasons why we're walking away from a podcast for creatives is, sometimes things just kind of lack the challenge to you as a human being, and I think we've identified something that will allow us to feel that way, to feel challenged by a new endeavor, and to try to figure out something, and all the while talking about something that is a topic area that is so relevant to our society today. We're a generation of people who are parents and grown-ups and adults now, and we've all sort of come from this era that, to a person, we look back on and remember fondly, but I think there are little moments and little nuances within those things that we all experience that we either remember and want to do a deeper dive into, or we have forgotten, and they deserve another look, and they deserve their just due, and that's going to be this opportunity for us, and we're really excited about it. We do have a working title for this next project, and it could change by the time you hear from us again, but we're rolling right now with Play Me a Memory. It's a little bit of an ode to our shared love of Billy Joel, but I think speaks exactly to the heart of what we're looking at doing, something that's close to our heart, something that's a memory, and something that we'd like to dive deeper into and take a closer look at.
I'll share from the logistical standpoint. We definitely do not have a release date for this. Sometime coming in 2024, I think would be a safe thing to say. We will release something into this podcast feed, whether it's an announcement, a teaser, maybe the whole episode. I don't know. I have to look into that. So you'll see one more kind of announcement from us, but the show will end up in a new feed. And I think our vision right now is for it to be a show. We're not really calling this a podcast because we wanted to stretch across different mediums. But if you are connected with us through this podcast feed or through YouTube or through our Instagram feed or through Twitter or through each of our individual accounts, my Instagram or Steve's LinkedIn or Twitter. As long as you're following one of those, you will hear about this, the first show when it's released. And I'm sure we'll also share some details as we start getting deeper into production about it. And we hope that you'll follow along, if anything, just for curiosity to see what this is, but mostly because we would love to have this community come along with us, because we've really just enjoyed getting to know new people, getting to know old people better. And I think it's going to be a fun journey, especially for kind of our generation, our fellow 80s and 90s kids, to do some deep dives into these maybe forgotten corners of our childhood.
So for one final time, let's hit the outro music. Thank you for 6 great years. We so appreciate the listening, the watching, the messages, the interactions, for being a part of our lives for 100 episodes. Cannot wait for what's next to come, and surely hope that you're with us, and thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for making something into a reality that we didn't know was ever going to come. And we're just very, very grateful for all of you.
Thank you. And we'll see you in the past.